Hi everyone, welcome to another edition of Tech Tips with Tamara. My name is Tamara Russell and I'm the host of the blog Mrs. Russell's Room, first grade. And today I'm actually bundling my tech tips with my Common Core Chat Tuesday. So today we're going to be talking about how we break down the standards for Common Core. This is a great way that my teammates and I have been able to use in order to understand the rigor to which we're to be teaching. So I'm going to go over this tool with you. It's editable and you'll find it on my blog as well. Let's take a look. Alrighty, the first thing that we need to do when we're analyzing the Common Core standards is to first pick a standard. So the one I have for you today is RL 1.2, which is retelling stories including key details and demonstrating the understanding of their central message or lesson. So this is a first grade standard, and by the end of the year, all of my students should be able to academically reach this particular standard. So the first step that we have after we identify the standard that we're going to be breaking down is to think about what is the standard requiring the students to master? What do they have to know? Well, in order for us to figure out what they have to know, let's talk about the word mastery. Mastery means that I will never forget it. So it's important that when the student moves on to the next year, that they still have a hold of that skill. For an example, I know that 2 plus 2 is 4. I can come up with that answer using strategies. I can come up with that answer using mental math. I know that 2 plus 2 is 4, and I can eventually figure that out because I have mastery of that particular concept. So you need to take that with you as you're looking at the standards. How can I make my kids most equipped to be able to show when they get to their next grade level that they still retained the understanding of what I taught them in the grade level in which I have them? So the next step is to write down the verbs, the words that show the action that the students must perform. So then we're going to go back up to our standard and reread it so that we can find those verbs. All right, well, the verbs would be retell and demonstrate understanding. After we've identified those verbs, then we go into looking at the nouns. We want to write down the nouns that show what the students are working with. For an example, key details, poems, strategies, newspapers, magazines. Those are other nouns that you might see in a standard. What are the nouns for this particular standard? This one has stories, key details, central message, lesson. I think that it's really important to note that in this particular standard, they want to know key details. Now in first grade, a lot of times you'll have students that want to ramble on and on about all of the different things that they recall from a story, but all of those mini details are not key to understanding the central message or lesson, overall lesson of the story. And so you want to help your young firstie synthesize information so that they can give you exactly what you need. This process over the course of the first grade year of teaching your students how to synthesize for those key details will over time help them to be able to articulate that central message or lesson that they're listening to in the story that you're reading to them. Okay? So then what do I think my students need to do when I'm looking at this standard? What's my interpretation of the demands that this standard is going to put on my learner? For this particular standard, I feel like retell implies speaking. I want my students to talk to me about what they recall from the stories that they've heard me read to them. I want them to demonstrate their understanding by showing that they understand what the story was all about. So maybe making that, like I said before, a synthesized thought, not a long rambling diatribe, but something that is short and sweet and to the point. For an example, Goldilocks and the Three Bears is a story about a girl who wants what she cannot have, and she visits a house that belongs to some bears, and she learns an important lesson to be satisfied with what she has. Maybe that's what they say about Goldilocks and the Three Bears. It's pretty short. I don't go into all of the different details about how she tried the porridge and blah, 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 blah. I've synthesized that down. All right, what are some ideas for how my student might prove mastery? It's really important to teach with the end in mind What am I trying to get them to prove to me? Sometimes if I can think about how I'm going to assess them at the very beginning, that gives me a better arc for how we get there. For this particular standard, I might have a retelling rubric, 4-point scale, where I list some things that I need to hear from that particular story. I might do some project-based learning, get my kids into groups of 4, have them look through a picture book, and then they all maybe make me a collaborative collage about the story, and then they talk about their collage. I might do a collaborative grouping activity where I might put picture tiles, that have parts of the story on it, and have the students put that in order. Each student gets to talk about that part of the story and share. Or I might even do what's called a $2 summary. The students, each word in their sentence is worth 10 cents, so they have to give me, in 20 words or less, the entire meaning of the story. Now, I did do this with my firsties, but I will tell you that it did take me till about March to get them to be able to do it on their own, but they were incredibly effective at that from March through the end of the year. So if you have any questions about how to break down the Common Core standards or how to apply what you've been learning to the classroom, stop by my blog, www.tamaravressel.blogspot.com, and check out some of the resources that I have on my blog. Or you might want to go through my YouTube channel and see how I'm approaching the Common Core standards in my first grade classroom. Thanks so much for joining me for my Common Core chat / tech tips with Tamara, and I hope you have a wonderful day.